Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Nuno, and I'm one of the directors at Nightingale Hammerson. This webinar today is part of our new Reach by Nightingale Hammerson project, that is a new charitable initiative aiming to support people to live better at home. And if you ask, why are we doing it? Nightingale Hammerson as a charity has been looking after the older Jewish community for over 100 years. And what we have noticed in the past 10 years mainly is that when people move into a care home, they are moving at a later stage in their life, which means that they spend years living at home with care needs. In many occasions, being looked after by their relatives that with the best of their will, they do not have a healthcare background, they do not have the knowledge about the basic issues related to care. For that reason, we've started creating and offering free practical advice online through videos, through webinars like today's webinar, to support people to live better for longer at home. Now, on today's webinar, that is the third webinar we are organizing, just wanted to highlight that this is being recorded. And the recording is going to be available at Nightingale Hammerson's YouTube channel in the following days. At the end of today's presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, either by writing the questions in the chat that you can do also during the webinar, or by raising your hand at the top of your screen. So then we'll give you the opportunity to ask your question. Let me also take the opportunity to invite you to follow Reach by Nightingale Hammerson on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook, so you get the most up-to-date information about the work we do and the resources we offer to you and to the community. If you need to include captions during this webinar, you can also follow the instructions through if you press on more on top of your screen and you follow the instructions, you can add the captions in English that are automatically generating. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Aliza. Aliza works for a fantastic charity called Paperweight. I'm not going to say much about the charity because Aliza is going to do, but I would just like to thank Paperweight and in particular Aliza for being here today to support you to know more about the funding options for care. This is a very important topic. Aliza, thank you very much, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Nuno. Good evening, everyone. My name's Aliza Kander, and I'm the team leader of the Elder Care Hub at Paperweight. As Nuno's mentioned before, if you have a hearing difficulty and prefer to read what I'm saying, please follow the instructions to switch on Microsoft Teams transcript, which will convert my speech into text. So let's start talking about what Paperweight does. So Paperweight is the Jewish community's advice centre, providing free practical support and advice to those in crisis and who may be struggling with multiple and complex needs. These range from the field of welfare benefits, family law, elder care, debt, probate, utilities, form filling, council tax, budgeting, divorce, employment, housing, among many of today's big issues affecting our community. Since we opened 13 years ago, we've had well over 20,000 clients, and we take on an average of 10 new client calls a day. We also have another service called Paperlight, which is our dedicated service for those who need that little extra light touch help on a regular monthly basis. So what can the Elder Care Hub offer? We can assist completing benefit forms and other forms, so attendance allowance, for example, blue badge, taxi card, dial-a-ride, to name but a few. We can make referrals to and liaise with social services. We can liaise with the district nurses and the GPs. We can give equipment advice and make referrals to local borough occupational therapists and physiotherapists and other charities that have an occupational therapy service. We can liaise with third-party organisations, for example, GIFT, Jewish Care. We can make housing application forms, for example, J Living and Jewish Blind and Disabled. And we can assist with daily living activities. We want to make sure we are coordinating the client's care. So who am I? Well, I'm the mother of 4. My eldest is 20, my youngest is 12. I'm a former mother of 2 rabbits and 1 Maltese dog, who are sadly no longer with us. I've got 20 years plus experience as a senior occupational therapist in both private practice and the NHS. And my husband tells me I've got much more to offer. As of yet, I've applied for many attendance allowance claims and I have not been refused one. So let's delve in and talk about care. Care funding in the UK is a very complex topic. It depends on individuals' financial circumstances, health conditions, and government policies. Understanding the different options available can help individuals and families plan effectively. Care at home, we'll start with care at home, is funded by the council. It can range from 1 carer to 2, depending on the person's mobility, and can be provided once a day to up to 4 times a day. Local boroughs don't usually provide carers overnight, only in exceptional circumstances. Extra care housing. This is a type of supported housing designed for older people or those with disabilities who want to maintain their independence but may need some level of care and support. It offers self-contained flats or bungalows within a communal setting, on-site care and support available 24/7, tailored to the individual's needs, communal facilities such as lounges, gardens and social areas, and flexibility in care. The residents can increase or decrease care services as needed. Moving on to residential care. So this provides 24-hour care in a communal setting. These are suitable for people who can no longer live independently, but do not require nursing care. A nursing care home is similar to a residential care home, but it provides a higher level of medical care. These homes are staffed by qualified nurses and are designed for individuals who have more complex medical needs that require continuous nursing care. Respite care provides short-term relief for primary caregivers, allowing them to take a break while ensuring their loved one continues to receive the care that they need. This can be arranged in the home or at a care facility. Often people coming out of hospital before they go home go into respite. Dementia care is a specialist care for individuals diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other cognitive impairments. This can also be provided at home, in a care home, or in a specialist dementia unit within a care facility. And finally on this slide, palliative care. This focuses on providing comfort and relieving symptoms for individuals with terminal illnesses or those who are in their final stages of life. And the goal is to improve quality of life rather than cure the illness. And I was so excited that I jumped into the presentation without doing the poll. So we're just going to go back to the poll, and I've given you a bit of a clue into some of the questions already. So I'm just going to take a 3-question poll. It's completely anonymous, and it just helps me get a sense of where everyone's up to before we begin. The questions are a simple yes and no. So you just have to select the answer that applies to you, click the arrow to move to the next question, and then hit the submit button at the end. And once everyone's finished, I'll briefly share a summary of the responses so we know where we're starting from. And then we'll come back to a poll at the end to see how things have shifted. So if you don't mind doing the poll, that would be great. We're going to talk about people who are self-funding, so the people who can pay by themselves. So broadly speaking, this is if you have savings over 23,250, or if you live alone and own your property. Even if you are self-funding, everyone has a legal right to a Care Act assessment by the local authority and then a financial assessment. Equity release. This is a financial product that allows homeowners to access cash tied up in their property while continuing to live there. Equity release is a way for older homeowners to unlock some of their money, their equity, tied up in the value of their home, without having to move out or to sell it. It's especially relevant for self-funders going into care, who may not have much in savings, but own a valuable home. There are two main types of equity release. The first one is called lifetime mortgage, which is the most common. This is where you borrow money secured against your home. You retain full ownership of the property, and there are no monthly repayments. The loan plus interest is repaid when you die or move into permanent care, usually from the sale of the home. You can sometimes choose to make interest payments to reduce the final amount owed. The second is called home reversion, where you sell part or all of your home to a provider in exchange for a lump sum or regular income. You get the right to live there rent-free for life, but you no longer fully own your property. When the property is sold, usually after death or moving into care, the provider takes their share. There are a few things to consider. The loan and interest can grow quickly over time, especially with lifetime mortgages. It can reduce the value of your estate, what you leave behind to your loved ones. It might affect eligibility for means-tested benefits. And an independent financial advisor is strongly recommended before proceeding, as there have been lots of issues where people haven't taken proper financial advice. Moving on to annuities and insurance. Some people choose to buy a care annuity, which is a one-time payment to an insurer that gives you a guaranteed, tax-free income for life to help cover fees. It's useful if you want certainty, but don't want to worry about money running out. The cost depends on your age and health, so it's also better to get specialist advice. Selling your property. So often people fund care by selling their home, especially if no one is living there. The money from the sale can be used directly or invested to provide income. It's important to time the sale well and think about whether selling or renting is better in the short term. Investments and savings plans. For those with savings or investments, using structured financial products like ISAs, bonds, or shares can help generate regular income to pay for care. This option gives more control, but it does come with risks. So again, getting advice from a financial advisor is really important. Deprivation of assets. This happens when someone deliberately gives away money, property, or other assets to avoid paying for care. For example, transferring a house to a family member or spending large sums shortly before a financial assessment. If the local authority believe this was done to reduce the care costs, they can treat the asset as if you still own it, meaning you may still be charged. So it's really important to plan ahead carefully and seek advice to avoid unintentionally triggering deprivation rules. So, means-tested funding. So local authorities assess an individual's income and savings to determine how much they should contribute towards care costs. So as we said, those with above 23,250 typically have to pay for their own care. A means test evaluates a person's financial situation, including savings, pension, and property, sometimes with exceptions for a spouse still living in the home. This determines whether they qualify for council support. The Personal Expenses Allowance, PEA, which is currently set at £30.15 per week, is a minimum amount of money that local authorities must leave with individuals who are receiving financial support from the local council to help pay for care fees. The purpose of the PEA is to ensure that you still have some money of your own to spend on personal items, such as toiletries, clothes, hobbies, or small outings. It protects your dignity and independence by giving you the freedom to make personal choices, even while living in a care home. Personal budgets and direct payments. If eligible for local authority funding, individuals may receive a personal budget, allowing them to choose how their care is provided. They can opt for direct payments, which enables them to hire carers or arrange services independently rather than relying on council-selected providers. Deferred Payment Agreements, DPA. If someone owns a home but doesn't want to sell it immediately to fund care, a deferred payment agreement allows the local authority to cover the costs and reclaim the money later when the property is sold or from the estate after the person has died. So, we're going to talk about continuing healthcare, CHC funding. This means if someone qualifies, the NHS will cover all their care costs, whether in a care home or at home. This is not means tested, nor do you need a financial assessment. It's really cumbersome and bureaucratic and can take a long time, and it's becoming more and more stringent. CHC can pay for a person's full-time care in a residential setting or provide funding for care services at home. As we said, it's not based on financial circumstances, but on an individual's health need. A person must have a primary health need, meaning their care is primarily for a medical condition rather than for personal care needs. The assessment process. A team of healthcare professionals will evaluate the individual's needs using a checklist and a full assessment. They consider factors such as mobility, cognition, breathing, medication needs, and complex care requirements. Even if someone is denied CHC initially, they can appeal the decision. Eligibility is also reviewed periodically to ensure a continued need. NHS-funded nursing care. If someone doesn't qualify for full CHC funding, but still needs nursing care in a care home, they may receive NHS-funded nursing care, which covers the nursing costs, but not the other care home fees. So, are there any other indirect benefits that can support the care costs? So I'm just going to briefly talk about the main benefits. So we'll start off with attendance allowance. This is a non-means tested, non-contributory, tax-free benefit to help people with extra costs associated with long-term ill health or disability. It's not meant for your regular bills, but you can spend it however you wish. It's for people over state pension age, 66, needing help due to illness or disability. It's paid at 2 different rates, depending on the care you need. So the day rate is £73.90, and if you need help day and night, it's £110.40 per week to help with personal support. To be eligible, you have to have needed the help for at least 6 months before applying. If you're successful in getting attendance allowance, you could get extra pension credit, housing benefit, or council tax reduction. And it doesn't depend on your income or your savings. Now, a couple of people have asked me about attendance allowance in a care home. So you can continue to receive attendance allowance while living in a care home, but the details depend on how your care is funded. So if you pay for your own care, you will still receive attendance allowance payments whilst in the care home, regardless of how long your stay is. If the local authority pays for your care, you'll receive attendance allowance for the first 28 days of your stay in the care home. And after the 28 days, the payments will stop. Special circumstances. So the funded nursing care, so if you receive the nursing funded care, you can continue to receive AA. If you receive CHC funding, the continuing healthcare that we discussed before, your AA, your attendance allowance, will stop after 28 days. If you're diagnosed with a terminal illness, you can continue to receive AA even if your care is funded by the local authority. Moving on to the next, which is carer's allowance. This is for those people who are caring for someone at least 35 hours per week. It's a weekly payment subject to earning limits and other conditions. It can affect your other benefits that the carer or the cared for person receives, e.g. state pension. However, even if your state pension exceeds the carer allowance rate, which is currently £83.30 weekly, you can still claim carer's allowance and receive what's called underlying entitlement. This means you meet the qualifying criteria for carer's allowance even if you aren't paid it directly. This underlying entitlement can lead to increased payments for other means-tested benefits. For example, pension credit, housing benefit, or council tax support. Applying for carer's allowance, regardless of whether you receive it, still grants you national insurance credits, which are important for building your state pension. And the underlying entitlement also provides documentation that can be useful for proving that you're a carer. Let's discuss pension credit. So this is an extra income for low-income pensioners to help with living costs. It can increase eligibility for other financial assistance like council tax reduction and free NHS prescriptions. Disability Living Allowance, DLA, and Personal Independence Payment, PIP. So for people aged 16 to state pension age, the equivalent benefit to attendance allowance is called Personal Independence Payment, PIP. And for children under 16, it's called Disability Living Allowance, DLA. Now, it's important to know that if someone was already receiving PIP or DLA before reaching state pension age, they can usually carry on receiving it. But once you've passed that age, you can't make a new claim for PIP or DLA. Instead, attendance allowance becomes the relevant benefit. Council tax reductions. So people with severe mental impairments or disabilities may be eligible for a council tax discount. Carers who live with the person they care for may also qualify. Warm home discount and winter fuel payments is a financial support to help older or vulnerable people with heating costs during the winter, and it's available to low-income pensioners and those receiving certain benefits. So where can you get further help? So first of all, at Paperweight, you can call us up. We've got a helpline where our helpline assessors will answer the call. They'll take your information and they'll pass you on to the relevant caseworker. You can look up your local council websites for financial assessments and care needs assessments and ask for a referral. You can contact the Citizens Advice Bureau, or CAB, which is a national charity that gives free independent advice to help people solve problems. They can support you with things like benefits, debt, housing, and especially care costs. You can approach AgeUK or Carers UK. So AgeUK is a UK-based charity that focuses on improving the lives of older people. It provides a wide range of services and support to help older individuals live well and live independently. And it offers assistance in areas such as health and well-being, financial support, social inclusion, and they give advice on issues related to ageing, care options, and housing. Carers UK is a national charity in the UK and provides support, advice, and advocacy for unpaid carers. They offer resources on financial support, rights, and well-being, along with a helpline and an online community. Their goal is to improve the lives of carers and influence policy changes to provide better support. And you can also contact independent financial advisors, IFAs, who are professionals who can provide guidance and help clients navigate the financial aspects of paying for care. So that's the end of my presentation. We're now going to take questions. If I ask, if you can please restrict the questions to those of a general nature. If people have specific personal questions, they can contact us or Nightingale Hammerson, and you can pop the questions into the chat or raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aliza. I have to say, this has been a fantastic lecture. We know how complex this system is in terms of allowances, fundings, and so on. And I'm so glad we have you here today because you are really clarifying a lot of questions. At the same time, it's very good to know this is being recorded so we can watch everything or parts of what you've said, because it's quite an extensive presentation you've done. So thank you so much for this presentation. We've got already one question on the chat, and I'll start with this question that is from Anthea Abery. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. The question is, some LAs are initiating a basic CT payment under CT support reduction for working age residents in assisted living with HB. Example, Harrow and Brent. Is there a way around this?
I've personally never come across this. Can you just repeat the question, please? Because it's quite complex.
Some LAs are initiating a basic CT payment under CT support reduction for working age residents in assisted living with HB. Example, Harrow and Brent. Is there a way around this?
So I normally deal with the people over pension age who are not working, so I've not come across that before.
Right.
I can look into it.
Yeah, we'll certainly look into this question, Anthea, and we can then get back to you with an answer to this. So we've got your details, we can get back to you. Second question, is PIP affected by going into residential care?
So I think it's probably the same as attendance allowance. That's what I would assume. Most people have attendance allowance. I would assume it's the same rules for PIP as attendance allowance that I mentioned.
Thank you. The next question from Naomi. If one of a couple has to go into care, does the other one have to lose the home to afford the care home fees? This is a very good question. So if my partner goes into the care home and we cannot afford the care home fees, will both of us lose the home? I think this would need to be assessed on a one-to-one basis.
I think it needs to be. I think a financial assessment needs to be done by the local authority.
Yeah.
Even if you're self-funding, or even if the local authority is paying for care, I would always advocate for a phone call to the local authority to get a care needs assessment and a financial assessment. But the partner can, I would say that the partner can stay in the home, but it just depends on how much the fees are and how much money they've got.
Yeah, thank you. We've got now a hand raised. That is Michael. Michael, we'll bring you in. We'll ask you to unmute and, if possible, to show up your camera as well so we can see you? Right, so while Michael is trying to figure out how to unmute and put the camera on, we've got another question here that is from Frank Davis. Can someone with Alzheimer's ever qualify for continuing healthcare funding? And if so, how bad does it need to get?
It really depends on the individual. It's a really rigorous process. They've got a very long checklist that they have to go through. I think people with Alzheimer's can, but it just depends on the individual's needs and their health condition.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question from Graham. How difficult is it to receive NHS funding? Where is the best place to obtain help to get this funding? So
NHS funding for care?
Help? The NHS, yes, the continuing healthcare funding. Where is the best place to get help on this?
So they need to go to the local borough and request a CHC funding assessment.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
There are other organisations that help, but I'm not sure, you know, I'm not, I can't recommend organisations that can help with it.
And if you allow me to come in, also if someone is in hospital and their healthcare condition changed, they can also be assessed directly in hospital, or if hospices, or if someone is reaching the end of their life, they might also be entitled to the fast tracking route to get the continuing healthcare funding, which means that in 24 to 48 hours, the assessment is done and the funding either is granted or rejected. We've got another question. How does one get continuing care? What are the criteria? In this one, I think, Aliza, I will reply to this one. So if you type on Google criteria for continuing healthcare funding, you will have a piece of information to read because it's an extensive list of criteria, but it's all very well defined in the government website. Any other questions? We still have Richard's hand up. Oh, Michael's hand up, but I don't know if Michael, if you can unmute, good. If not, we've got another question, Aliza. And this question is about, is it possible for someone that is currently receiving social services funding to transfer into an NHS Continuing Healthcare funding?
Can you repeat it, please?
So if someone has been means tested and is receiving funding from social services, from their local authority, is there an option to transfer to continuing healthcare funding at a certain point?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't know. I wouldn't like to say yes or no. I don't know.
Right. I believe on this one, it's if their health condition changes and their healthcare needs become very significant, they will be able to convert from social services funding to continuing healthcare funding, either by having an NHS continuing healthcare funding assessment or through the fast track route. If someone is reaching the end of the life, or if they went into hospital, their condition deteriorated, they will be entitled to it. Now, Michael, your question is here. A surviving partner will not have to sell their home to pay for care home fees, or if one enters the care system. So I think this was the question. I don't know if this is a question or an affirmation
answer,
from Michael. Yes. Okay, good. I don't know if there are any other questions to Aliza right now. So if there are no more questions, we are actually getting to the end of the webinar. Now, what I'd like to say is that, again, this webinar has been recorded. You will be able to watch the full webinar, the full presentation that has been extremely helpful. You will also have the questions and answers available. And again, to on the webinar, you will be able to see all the different resources that are available to support you and your families in all these very complex issues that, there in many circumstances, there isn't one answer. It depends on the circumstances of the particular person. So I would like to thank you for watching, and at the same time invite you again to follow Reach by Nightingale Hammerson on Facebook, on LinkedIn, but also to follow the Nightingale Hammerson's YouTube channel, and you will be able to see then the full recording. At the same time, once the recording is available, next week we'll be emailing all the attendees of this event, so we'll be able to review it. Aliza, thank you so much once again for your time today. Thank you to all your team on Paperweight for the fantastic job you are doing, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And you will also receive an update for our next webinar next month, a very, very interesting topic from Professor Mark Clarfield from Israel that is going to talk about the different approaches around end-of-life care in the three Abrahamic religions: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. It will be a very, very interesting webinar. So watch out for this space. You will receive information about it. Thank you, Aliza, and good evening to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.